Hey, that's pretty bad. 136 to 130. The Raptors lose to the Knicks in the Garden. The offense was pretty good tonight. They actually managed to turn that around to some degree. I haven't looked at their half court points per possession yet, but if you poked in and looked at it, I'm sure it'd be good. The transition offense didn't look fantastic to me tonight, but 130 points, you can't turn your nose up at. However, 136 allowed. That's really terrible. They've been close to, I don't know, a bottom 10 defense over the past handful of games. Allowing 136 is not going to help that. I think they were 11th in the NBA coming into this game defensively. As crazy as that sounds, as bad as it's been lately, there's no way they're 11th after this. To talk about this game, Esfandiar Barahaney is here to join me. We're all here to commiserate, and we're all here to just hang out and say like, "Wow, things are bad." How you feeling, S?
Yeah, this was tough, man. This was very, very tough. First of all, we're matching. Very nice. For the people
Oh
listening, we're wearing blue for the Knicks, for Knicks basketball, clearly. Um,
sure.
it was tough, man. Tough. Very, very tough game. I think from the perspective of what we expected, what the Raptors could be this season, their defense has just been so wildly inconsistent. I mean, yeah, words tough to come across to like explain how, I don't know, apathetic I am to what's going on. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Apathetic could definitely be accurate. That could be
yeah,
fine. I think let's do the quick stuff that went well.
sure,
And
yeah,
then there'll be ton of if anybody wants to hear complaining or like yelling. That's not really my bag, the yelling thing, but we'll do Coco says I'm in periwinkle. So we're different shades of blue, I say. But on top of that though, let's maybe keep it on OG and Scottie. I think
yeah.
Pascal was quite passable in this game, but I do want to talk about how he struggled specifically. Uh OG thoughts. Lots of drives, lots of finishes.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
Yeah,
good?
very, very, very good. I thought like even though the jumper wasn't going, the Knicks were respecting the jumper, and he was doing a great job of attacking closeouts and like punishing that aspect of it. Finishing at the rim much better this season in general, but tonight was the best case scenario for it. I think he had 16 points midway through the third quarter, and he had only hit 2 threes, and then right after that he hit a couple more threes to kind of buoy that box score. But ultimately, like, I love the fact that he's getting downhill more. He's more poised on those drives. He's finishing more confidently there. Super dope game. And honestly, the defensive stuff probably wasn't the greatest tonight, just because Randall handled business against everyone today. You kind of expect that from OG to get stops, but just big body Randall was too big of a factor. The offensive side was really good for OG though.
Yeah. It's like that's the thing about OG. I thought that a lot of the cuts in this game were really well made. I thought that the finishing was good. Contact finishes through traffic, doing a really good job there. And then Scottie, although he and Pascal both finish at 20 points, Pascal on 15 shots, Scottie on 13. Pascal 3 of 7 at the line, which was like woof. I think that their approaches, even though they end up at the same amount of points, were very different, and I liked Scottie's more. Like, credit to Siakam towards the end of the game, found his stride, but early on was struggling a lot because the Knicks did such a good job defending the rescreens. They did such a good job playing in the gaps and making sure that
Mm-hmm.
there's no room. And that's why in this game, like Scottie and Pascal for them, and especially Scottie, scoring off of offensive rebounds and jump shots. The Knicks packed the paint and did a really good job, very fundamentally sound. But I think there were so many. I know that the box score looks good at the end for Pascal, 20 points, 4 steals, 4 assists, 53% from the field. But there were so many possessions. I'm sure you saw this too in the first half where you could see he's getting a controlled closeout. The defense is bent for him already. There's
Mm-hmm.
a shot there, and I know you don't want him taking threes, but also he's forcing a drive downhill or the defense already bent and he can't do a good enough job. And that's kind of the tough aspect. This game was, I think, a really stark contrast between Pascal working against tight defenses versus not shooting the jumper over top of a defense that wasn't going to respond to the rescreens. They were going to play in the gaps. Just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, did you remember it kind of was like back-to-back possessions. One possession, I think he got the isolation on Jericho Sims, did like his patent fadeaway jumper. Like that's kind of like the area of the court where you think Pascal's going to thrive in terms of getting that mismatch, hunting it out, and then like operating in that area. But then there was another possession, I think it was maybe right after or a couple after, where, like you said, the Raptors are kind of moving the ball around the perimeter. It gets to Pascal. They close out short. He tries to attack regardless, and there's no advantage created. I think it's a turnover the other way, and Josh Hart goes for a layup. And it's just like it's like the Raptors, the way the offense looks right now around Pascal doesn't do him any favors. Maybe where he's being positioned to go and attack and try to create advantages also isn't doing him any favors. Because of someone called me OVOS. Wow, I can't do that. I can't claim that at all. But the way that they're manufacturing these shots for Pascal, there's so much variance to it that on one possession, he'll get a spot where he exactly wants it, that like mid-range pull up against Jericho Sims. And then on the other one, he's trying to attack a tilted defense that is, like you said, already tilted. And it just seems wonky. I don't know. I think that's probably the best way I would put it. So wonky approach from Pascal.
There was a lot of possessions where Pascal is getting the ball above the break, right in the middle, and there's help from either side he chooses. We saw the one possession late in the game where Scottie hits the three. Scottie does a great job forming up to Pascal's drive, but Pascal has it basically on one side, and he has one defender he needs to collapse before he opens up a three-point shot. And when he's in the middle of the floor, and they kind of just get to squeeze in, and neither side has to commit fully. They just get to show he's just not creating anything. And so Pascal finished out this game fine. It was passable. If for the box score watchers, you're not going to be able to look at this one and tear him apart. But I was actually really, especially in the first half, disappointed with Pascal's approach. And he is a more talented on-ball player than Scottie. And Scottie, I think, was seeing this game better. And Scottie wasn't forcing it. Scottie was like, let me get into the jumper and let me see what I can do about putting the ball up and seeing how I can help the framework of the offense. So I thought there was a pretty stark contrast there. An interesting comment was brought up. Okay.
Great Persian name.
No, no, not that one. It was talking about the starts to the season. Okay, here we go. From Bryce Diamond, through 23 games in 2013-14, Raptors were 9-14. Through 22 games in 2021-22, 9-13. I wonder what we thought of those teams at that point of the season. Can we look back quickly? What did you think about those teams?
I was very, very looking forward to a Rudy Gay trade, if that's the year we're talking about. Yeah, it is, right? I was very much so like, man, this team doesn't work. It's like way too many people trying to look for their own shots between Kyle, between DeMar, between Rudy. It just didn't work at all offensively. The defense was out of sorts. There was no balance on the roster, which comes to mind when it comes to this team as well. There is not a lot of roster balance positionally. And yeah, I mean, there are some parallels. I know you've done a piece yourself on some of the parallels between that year and this year, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that, right? You did, right? You did.
There was somebody said that they were very, very comparable from the optimistic standpoint. So I wrote a piece kind of looking at everything that was the same and everything that was different. And I came away basically saying there's nothing that similar between them because there's no Kyle Lowry comp. And for anybody who wants to say like Scottie and Kyle Lowry, sure, to some degree, but also Kyle Lowry was about to become a perennial all-NBA impact guy, which Scottie might, but Scottie's not going to get underpaid like Kyle was for like 6 straight years. And Kyle being underpaid allowed the Raptors to fill out the roster with better players and have a deeper team, which has been evasive to this point, let's say.
Yeah, and for their part, the Raptors did a great job of like working around the edges, right? And some of the guys that they did take swings on worked out.
Worked the edges, man.
They worked the edges. Yeah,
elbow in the edges.
Oh,
dude.
Yeah. Fred VanVleet, Finals MVP vote getter, was an edge move as much as possible. You know, look, I think ultimately like the comparable comes down to the idea of balance and this team not being as balanced positionally, structurally, however way you want to put it, not being as balanced as you'd wish it would be. And yeah, that might end up meaning a trade. That might end up not meaning a trade in this scenario, but there's multiple outcomes to this. We saw how it looked in 2013 and what direction they went with. Maybe that happens again. Maybe it doesn't. But I think the parallel is, in terms of positionally, just the balance of this team is off.
And I think just to look back at how I was feeling about both teams, in 2013-14, I was looking at the team and saying, yeah, Rudy Gay probably has to be traded just to shake things up, start pursuing a different future for this team. And also, the other part is that nobody wants to trade Scottie right now. But in 2013-14, a lot of people, it wasn't just Rudy Gay.
Right.
It was also Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry definitely, he almost got traded.
Yeah.
And then he didn't. And now the Raptors are getting sued. There's a lineage there, a history, of course. And then, so I wanted the team to shake things up. And in 2021-22, I didn't really care if they shook things up because we had seen, I don't know if it was 9-13, we had seen maybe 6 games of Pascal so far. We had seen 22 games of Scottie Barnes to that point, and he had been super encouraging. Right. I thought, and also Fred was en route to an all-star selection, right? So we were seeing a bunch of these things that they seem positive. The team was younger. The team was more affordable. And I was like, I guess we'll see what happens. Obviously, they ended up making the playoffs. They seemed really encouraging than we had last year. And the team this year, I do think that it behooves the Raptors to move in a different direction. Now, there's a couple different pathways, a couple different avenues of what that looks like.
Yeah.
But I do think moves have to be made. To stand pat is maybe the biggest move in itself, and a bad one.
A malpractice, if you will. I don't know, man. It's funny because we can say conventional wisdom would say this Raptors team should make a move. And I think we've probably been beating that drum for the last 2 years where it's like, well, this team last year probably should have made a move. They did. It was a buy move instead of a sell move, which was against the conventional wisdom of saying, hey, this team might have to go to a different direction. They actually doubled down on that direction.
And such a weird buy move, too.
Very strange. Yeah.
They're like other teams who are in a similar space, let's say, are like, we're going to go out and get Derek White. And you know what? We'll just go for it. And the Raptors, and I get it. Thad Young came over and he was a plus-minus king for a stretch of 21 games or something.
Yeah.
But that can't be your move.
Yeah.
That just can't be your move. I know he's making 4 times as much this year as Ohtani is, which speaks to Thad's incredible prowess. But that's a crazy move to make. And then the next season, I sat here. I went to Niagara Falls with my friends who came from Saskatchewan the day of. Yock gets traded at 3 a.m. I sit here and I say, geez, seems to me like the Raptors aren't a good enough team to justify this trade.
Mm-hmm.
We're here all these months later. Seems like that's the case.
Yeah.
Tough, man.
Tough is the way to describe it because it's gotten to the point where you do not expect this Raptors team to move in a conventional way, right? And I just going into these next couple of months and knowing that in the back of my mind, I'm kind of hesitant to say, yes, the Raptors will absolutely trade Pascal and move in a different direction, or yes, they will absolutely trade OG and move in a whatever, right? Whatever the outcome is, I'm hesitant to be 100%, not even okay, let's say 90% sure of that because of the way that they've moved over the last couple of years, because of how they've operated. It just seems like whatever the conventional thought is, whatever this comment section is suggesting right now, they are going to move in the exact opposite direction.
The comment section always has a lot of ideas, but you bring up maybe the most important thing, which you have brought up before, is that the most important identifier of how a front office will move going forward isn't, in fact, what you think the team should do, because we rarely think the same as a front office does, but also the most important indicator of what they're going to do is past
track record,
decision making. It isn't like, oh, this would be a good thing to do. It's like, well, what do these guys usually do?
Right.
And when Masai comes out at the trade deadline and says, I don't think the trade deadline is a good place to make decisions for the future, it makes me kind of like,
yeah.
does that mean everything is come down to this summer?
Right.
I don't know, man. And especially since the fan base is looking at this saying, trade now, give it now. And it's not happening till at least what is December 15th or January 15th. It's not happening for a little while, but there you go, man. People want change.
Yeah.
Samuel Barefoot, thank you for the $5. He asks us, how would you guys react if they try to win now by trading for PJ Tucker?
Yeah, I would be the Joker meme, you know? Yeah, it would be tough. I don't know how to explain
Well,
to
especially
myself.
since I reckon that would be great word, by the way. Kind of Blue says, return to the Halcyon PJ Tuckin days. Man, Halcyon, I love the term Halcyon days, firstly. And I look back on them, certainly. But especially, shout out to our friend Nabil, who says how important second round picks are in the new CBA. You can't be handing those things out willy-nilly for PJ Tucker or Jakob Poeltl. You just can't be giving those things out, man. If they add to this team, I would be very confused. I can see if they try and make like a lateral move from the Pascal Siakam position, where you say, Scottie's making the all-star leap. We want him to try and play on competitive teams going forward. Instead of Pascal for a bunch of assets, maybe we try and do Pascal for a player who is maybe not as good, but comparably good, maybe a little bit more cost efficient, and is going to help pair with Scottie better for that next however long, instead of starting from scratch again, because then Scottie will be on his max extension with maybe a team that doesn't suit him at that time. It's all up in the air.
Right? You know who that sounds like, right? What you described?
Oh, stop.
I'm just saying.
No,
it sounds like a specific type of player. I use a lateral fits better with what Scottie's doing. They're being more competitive. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Scottie.
I'm talking about Zach LaVine, by the way.
I know it's not just, but my thing is like, it's not just shooting to fit next to Scottie.
No,
Scottie he's still so dependent on other people's creation. Yeah. Tonight was a good example too, right? Like he's scoring mostly on offensive rebounds and jump shots. He can't navigate the lane that's packed. He's having trouble creating from a standstill. You need a player who pairs well with that, a player who can help create for him sometimes. And Pascal can certainly create for Scottie. That's why we see these dramatic splits in Scottie's numbers when Pascal is on the floor versus off. But conceivably, there's a player in the future who can help create for Scottie, yes, and can also play off of Scottie a little bit more efficiently with floor spacing than Pascal has. All that said, we're going to get back to the Knicks game quickly. Dennis Schroeder, the quietest 20-10 game of the season so far.
Yeah, those 10 assists look like Knicks scoreboard people were doing him some favors.
The first one. Pascal took 3 dribbles on a fast break, 7 steps, not 7 steps without a dribble, but 7 steps over the duration. They gave Dennis the assist.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dennis, I don't know if he has all the scorekeeper guys on the take. I know you have a friend who did scorekeeping as well, and who knows like the verify. I don't know how the hell these things make it out as assists, but 20-10. Let's take it back to the Schroeder starting lineup thing with the caveat, this team won't be fixed by a starting lineup change. However, it could be enhanced with better lineup framework, I suppose.
Right.
Where are you? Big guy, big rich ass.
Oh, don't do that.
For Forbes Sports.
Yeah. I do think to what most people think, I do think the Raptors should tweak the starting lineup. I've been on wax since before the season started that Dennis Schroeder shouldn't be the starting point guard for this team. He's been awesome for a bit. Now we're seeing the opposite side of that, where he's struggling with his jumper a little bit more. The defense was great to start the year. I thought the defense tonight was pretty poor from Dennis Schroeder overall, just like not navigating around screens the way he was to start the year.
The last few games,
unfortunately. Yeah. And I don't know if that maybe like there's something that's bothering him, like leg injury wise. I know he was dealing with something like midway through the year, but ultimately, like the defense has not been good to start over the last couple of games, like you mentioned. And like, I just don't see the offense buoying his productivity and value enough to keep him on the court and be a starter when there might be a different look that could look better next to these other guys. We just talked about how much like spacing and secondary playmaking, all that stuff makes sense. There are benefits to starting a player like Dennis Schroeder. He's quick. He can get downhill, dribble penetration, drive and kick stuff. Very, very good with Dennis Schroeder. But then the other side of it is there were multiple possessions tonight, especially in the third and fourth quarter, where Dennis is above the break. Pascal Siakam creates an advantage in the post. He kicks it to Dennis above the break. Nobody helps. Nobody is respecting that shot, and no advantage is gained, right? And I think that's something you have to look at and tweak. And I honestly, I don't know if the Raptors will tweak it. My question to you would be like, do you think they would actually remove Dennis from the starting lineup? Because I'd be surprised if they do, especially given like the Darko connection. He's the big signing this summer, all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I'd be surprised.
Big signing. I love that. That's very good. I will say that I think, like, especially after I thought offensively, for the most part, Dennis played a pretty tidy role tonight. I think it was like 20 points on 12 shots.
Yeah.
And he did actually hit 4 jumpers tonight, 2 out of the mid-range, 2 from downtown. The big problem lately, and I know this is like, if you look at the starters coming into this game, they defensively were 53rd percentile, offensively 17th. So what you're saying is that is the overall trend. Tonight, it was more so the defense. Yeah. But that is kind of the point, that when you looked at this lineup and you take the same lineup from last year, you just swap Fred and Dennis, it was a very strong lineup. The idea was that Dennis is supposed to punch above his weight so much defensively that it makes this starting lineup more tenable, because nobody should have had any thoughts about Dennis being a better offensive player just because of gravity and spacing than Fred was. Dennis was supposed to give you so much more in point of attack defense. And that has really fallen off a lot over the course of the last few games. Mm-hmm. And there is this thing where it compounds. When you fail at one thing, you start to fail at a lot of the other things. And the Raptors, a team that, like Darko said, you know, I asked him at his introductory press conference, like, what about the defense? He said, don't worry, we're going to have a good defense. I'm excited about all the different styles we can play. I'm excited about, you know, protecting the paint, forcing late contest wing threes, and guarding the corner threes. And it's like, the corner threes lately have been more available. The paint lately has been more available. And that is a direct correlation between more point of attack slippage, having to rotate to it, and not being as quick to rotate back out. And being like, this happened to this team last season. Once it slipped at the point of attack, they were slower rotating to get in front of drivers and slower rotating to get back out. What helped save them was that for a time, Jakob was sublime guarding the rim. He's not been as effective this season. And after the trade, Fred was better at the point of attack, and he was better off ball. And the Raptors as a team defended better. To start this year, they defended better. And everything's falling back to the wayside. This is tough, man.
Yeah.
And like you said, and like, I can't remember who asked, but they asked what happens. I think it was Dawson Ned. I can't remember. Or sorry, Simon Amorim says, okay, but who do you actually replace Schroeder with? And this is a big question.
Yeah.
But there's kind of like one answer for the most part, I think. It's Gary. And that's a bet on not the defense, because the defense probably gets worse.
Yeah.
It's a bet on the offense. What do you make of that interplay? Is that something you're interested in? Again, Forbes.com/sports.
Yeah, no, look, I think, again, I said from the beginning of the year that I think Gary would have made more sense offensively. I agree with you that there is a drawback defensively. And then my question is, Gary has struggled to start this year too. Like, he hasn't been as good offensively, especially in the shooting department, as you would have liked. So maybe he plays better now paired with Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes. Maybe, you know, like, his offensive production is so tied to them creating advantages for him off of these like spot up opportunities for him. Maybe even some dribble handoff stuff that you can throw in there with both of those guys. I think there's an avenue for him to look much better offensively with the starters. But then you look at the defense and you're like, who is going to, you're asking a lot out of OG to be that point of attack defender for you. OG took on the Brunson role to start this game. I think he switched on to Randall because Randall was cooking a lot more. And now you're asking OG to play in multiple different spots and be that point of attack defender and maybe have to switch out onto Randall. So like, let's say in tonight's situation, right? He was on Brunson to start this game. The Raptors realized that Randall started cooking both Pascal and Scottie. They asked OG to switch out onto Randall, which, by the way, Randall still did his job in that department, but it creates an advantage for Brunson, who did a really good job in the second half of carving up the Raptors. I just think it's like you are going to have drawbacks. And either way, realistically.
Steal from Peter to pay Paul, that's like the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant term you'd use or whatever.
No idea, but I'll believe it. Yeah, sure.
You are going to run into some defensive stuff, but I just wonder about, does it better balance the starting lineup from an offensive standpoint? And you ask guys like Scottie, who his defense has slipped as of late.
Yeah.
OG, obviously, you don't want to blame him too much, but his defense was less effective tonight, but mostly just because, hey, man, if Julius Randle is going to hit 6 fadeaways on the baseline, he's going to hit 6 fadeaways on the baseline. That's not every game for him, and especially with a hand in his face and good contests, like OG taking the body bump, even Pascal in those same plays. You just have to try and find that equilibrium. The question for Darko, obviously, that he's asking himself, that the front office is asking themselves, is like, is the attempt at finding that equilibrium going to be rewarding enough to shake up the starting lineup? Because there's the human aspect of it too. Like if you take Dennis out, there's going to be something there, presumably. Maybe not a big thing, but something. And because I assume when they talked to him and they said, hey, they probably talked about a starting role, and Darko is probably like, I love this guy, he's going to start. And the Raptors are underperforming, I think, both sides of the floor. And you have to wonder, like, okay, what does this all look like? And I don't really know what it would look like. But from my point of view, and like the analyst point of view, I want to see things change. I want to write about and talk about a changing team, what they're trying. From the fans' point of view, they're like, I want to see things change. I want to watch something different. And from the coach's point of view, he's like, I want to maintain like cohesion in the locker room and find the best product going forward. And he definitely, the coach's thought process is, it's never, oh, these guys don't do this. It's always, what do these guys do? How do I accentuate that? And that's probably the biggest reason for why that isn't happening. But from my point of view, that's what I think. And Nesta asks why, what MLE is guaranteed starting? That's true.
That's a good question.
True, but that doesn't change that those would have been the conversations.
Yeah.
Like you tell a guy he's starting, then you have to take that back. He doesn't look at the amount of money he's paid. He doesn't care. He said, you said I was starting. But that's kind of my thoughts on the starting lineup thing. It's a walking on the edge of a knife, I suppose.
I mean, the other positive is that the bench will look probably even better than it has if you throw Dennis in there, in my opinion.
It would be funny if it looked worse. It would be funny if both were worse.
It would be very funny. I agree. I don't know. I think like there's a world in which you kill multiple stones or kill multiple birds with one stone. You don't kill stones. You kill multiple birds with one stone. In order to bench Dennis, you give Gary a little bit more of a role. He works better offensively with those starters. And then off of the bench, you have Dennis and Malachi sort of orchestrating things for this team, creating advantages. I could see a world in which that works. Do the Raptors see that? Do they potentially see the benefit, like you said? I don't know, man. I don't think they do, to be honest.
It's kind of funny that if you look at the Raptors' success over the past however many years, the years where they don't have a member of the backcourt selected to an all-star game, the years where they do, it's just like, that's what it is. Their backcourt has not been good enough.
Oh, God.
Like their backcourt has not been able to lead them to a bunch of stuff. And so I know everybody talks about trades and rebalancing the roster, and I'm sure most, like, if somebody's telling you to trade for a wing right now, stop it.
Yeah.
Never bring it up again. You got to look to the backcourt. We're bringing in from behind enemy lines where he lives, I suppose. Baker, give us our weekly drop in from you on the Raptors. What are your thoughts?
Behind enemy lines, bro. What? What did I get? What did I get to deserve that?
You're a Celtics fan, man.
Celtics, yeah.
I mean, I'm not an enemy. I'm not. I mean, yeah, you're right about that. Fun game. Lots of points. Not a whole lot of defense being played on either side. So that was nice. But this isn't the type of game the Raptors can win. They don't really have like they're not built to like get into shootouts with teams. They're more built to just muck up the game and try to just win in the trenches and try to just win like the slugfests. The 92-99 games, or like the games that are in the hundreds. Just games that they can lean on their defense a lot more, even though their offense isn't perfect. They kind of just lean into, getting extra possessions, just being the more physical team, being the more active team. Like when a team that's just as talented as them and is better than them at all the little things that they do, it's a big problem. And that's what the Knicks are. Like they're a little bit more talented. They definitely like do all the little things well, like crash the glass, fight for extra possessions, make a conscious effort on rebounding. So, they kind of met their match today. The defense was awful. Anytime a team shoots 60% from the field and 58 from three, like you're not going to win that many games. Especially even if you like shoot really well from the field and from three, like the Raptors.
Let's keep it there. I want to ask you, you watch quite frequently the Raptors, which I appreciate, but also quite frequently the third best defense in the NBA, the Celtics. What are some of the hallmarks that you see the Celtics achieving night to night that the Raptors haven't been defensively lately? Because they haven't been good defensively lately. What are we missing? Don't say the players. Come on. Like
no.
We need
they definitely, I said earlier in the season they have the personnel on defense. Like that's for sure. They have a lot of guys who can, just can really defend their position really very well, and also like fight up, like kind of punch above their weight class, and fight. I mean, not fight, but like guard. Other positions. They're very versatile, but I think with Boston is just like, I think like the drop has been very good. And also like they have a lot of interchangeable pieces on defense. And also like I think their bench, like coming in, it doesn't hurt them as much on defense as when like, sometimes when the Raptors come in with their bench units, or like sometimes when they try to mix and match starters, they somehow could just like, stay even defensively. Like guys like Sam Hauser and Payne Pritchard, you would think that these guys like
we can't, bro. They have Precious Achua, and we can't. Oh man, it's so crazy.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
I just looked at the stats. The Raptors dropped from, I believe, 11th in defensive rating. This game are now 19th. These Raptors with Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam, Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, whoever you want to pick, Dennis. At first, when he got signed, Trey, he sold me a dream about Dennis at the point of attack, having just watched him in a Lakers series.
I predicted I said the all defense vote, remember?
Yeah. Right. And I liked it to start the year. I came around on it, but I got to tell you, the things have fallen to the wayside. 19th for this team, and you're going to be that bad offensively, completely untenable. How?
What's the funny thing? Like
I thought like 12th was the floor, man.
Only the Wizards and Pistons have lost more games in the Eastern Conference is just insane.
Way to rub salt on the wound, man.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. Hey, listen, you know what? It's fun. Like, we're having the defense conversation, but earlier in the Raptors Republic Trey Spaces, you were talking about building from the middle and how that's a recipe for disaster. You've experienced it as a Wizards fan / Celtics fan.
I mean, not really. I mean, not really the other part, but yeah.
No, now you don't claim the Wizards.
Yeah,
Now you don't.
yeah. I mean, like, like being from the metropolitan area, I kind of like I root for them, because I'm from the area. I watch the games all the time, and football, I root for the Washington team. So like it's
Right.
like I kind of feel an attachment towards them. But like I said earlier, like this endless like hole of mediocrity, it's not good. Like at some point you have to like realize as a franchise, like what is the difference between you being like the 10 seed and possibly missing the playoffs, between you just being straight up bad and like you're missing the playoffs. You're both same result. Like, I mean, obviously you want to have growth, and you want to have like you want to have some sort of direction that you want to go to. But
Mhm.
at least now with the Wizards, they're picking a direction saying, hey, we're going super young. We're gonna start adding, we're gonna start from the bottom, we're gonna work our way back up. And even as bleak as it's been, you know, there are some like silver linings. Like they finally hit on a draft pick this summer, and
Bilal is pretty sick.
yeah,
Mhm.
That step through, I know everybody saw. That
Yeah.
was sick.
it's the only reason I watch the games. Like even though they got absolutely decked tonight, but like it's the only reason. His progression is probably like the one thing that I'm looking forward to every game. And I think the Raptors, like, even though like the season has been so bleak, like Scottie's progression, like every single game, that's something that you can very much hang your hat on. And then, if you decide to just go all in on his direction in the offseason, like that's something that they can do. It's just a matter of like, are they actually going to do it? Because I think this front office still thinks in the back of their head, we can compete, we can compete, we can compete, we can compete. But how long are the fans and how long are the players just gonna realize like we can't compete, man? Like I
Well,
think it's just time.
how many data points are they just going to ignore is the question. It's
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
tough.
So yeah, like I just think the minute they just like realize to themselves, like, yeah, this isn't working out. We've tried this for like almost 3 years in a row now. It's like, at what point is it gonna run its course, and you're just gonna say like, okay, now it's time to shake things up, because now you're kind of at a point where like you kind of have to choose like which players you want to keep, and like that's a hard decision for Masai to make. I'm not sure what decision he's gonna make. I think there is a very simple solution, and that's to probably build around Scottie. But it's still very difficult. Still very difficult because Pascal's still very good. OG's really good. Um, the team has talent on it. It's just like the parts don't really fit. It's like you're trying to fit a square peg into a circle. So it's just like
2013 vibes, man. 2013
yeah,
vibes.
You want
yeah.
to know
So
something? Where I grew up, there's like in small towns in Saskatchewan, there are little museums. And I learned that there were Dutch immigrants who came over, and they actually would build homes smashing round pegs into square holes. As crazy as it sounds. But the Raptors, we don't want to be Dutch. You want the normal nails. They were wooden, maybe a little bit more malleable. But also, what you said about talent versus momentum, I also listened to an Andre 3000 interview today. And, the guy was kind of probing him, saying, like, maybe you should be rapping more. Think about, he likened it to parking a Ferrari in the garage and never using it, his rapping talent. And he
yeah,
said, I don't think it's about talent. I think it's about momentum, doing things at the right time, making the right decisions. And that's something that the Raptors have really struggled with. This was a team that had a really great sense of building, a really great sense of like adding on to things, even when it seemed like they couldn't get over the top in the playoffs. Still in the regular season, they were kind of adding accolades. Their players were getting more accolades over time. Their team was winning more games. They were getting chances to add to the team, to kind of mess around with what's going on, check out different things. This team has done very little as far as like changing the look. And the Raptors of old would get to change the look in what they perceive to be an upgrade, for example. It's not like Terrence Ross is the best guy ever, but Terrence Ross goes to the bench and you bring in DeMarre Carroll, for example. Swapping Fred VanVleet for Dennis Schroeder, I think most people assumed that would be a downgrade of sorts, even if it's a better money move in the long term. I guess we'll see what happens as far as like maintaining momentum. There's something I kind of want to ask about because this is a hot button topic. Abre Los Ojos and as well as Josh H. So from Abre says the difference is 29 to 32-year-old guys stealing developmental reps. And then Josh H. says, but we aren't putting Scottie in a real position to see what he can do. So I kind of want to stick on this as far as what you guys would like to see. So Pascal, for example, I think is probably around 26% usage. I think Scottie's close to like 23. I don't know what Dennis is right now. I imagine it's over 20%. But over a game, that's like 1 to 2 more used possessions. The gap. It's not as big as people think it is. There still has to be a ton of usage on this roster. And you don't want Scottie 40% usage. You don't want Scottie probably like 33% usage. These are like Russell Westbrook, James Harden numbers. What is the sweet spot to you guys? That's what I kind of want to understand.
That's tough. I think closer to what it was to start the year. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Pascal is the one getting the short end of the stick, because that's what was happening. But as far as it comes to Scottie was at around 26, 27% to start the year. It's come down to 23%. Pascal was at like 18 to 20, and it's come up to like 26%. If you could find a balance in which both of those guys are at like 25, 26, and have Schroeder be near 18, 17, maybe OG an uptick in usage, then I think you see people not being as, I guess, mad about the developmental reps, if you will, and touches overall. I still think you need guard play, though. And that's where the equation gets tough. It's like, you still need a guard to run these actions. You still need a guard that can get downhill. You still need a guard to operate. And I know Scottie point guard, all that type of stuff. But ultimately, as you said like 20 minutes ago, Samson, you still need a guard, like a dynamic guard to play alongside Scottie. So how are you going to be able to compensate for that? That's where I'm left with the roster construction issue, where it's like, yes, you would love to see both Pascal and Scottie having near equal usage, near equal touches. But then there's also you're being deprived of something that you need in a basketball game, on a basketball court, in guard play. And like, how are you going to get that from Scottie, from Pascal, creating these advantages? It's tough. If you look at the Orlando Magic, who like rely very heavily on Franz and Paolo to be those high usage guys for them, and their guards do these ancillary things that still, despite the lack of shooting, really benefit those guys. Like Jalen Suggs, great point of attack defender. Cole Anthony comes off the bench, gets buckets, can score off of these plays for them, plays alongside Franz, plays alongside Paolo very, very well. You don't necessarily have those types of guards on the Raptors that can create these advantages for themselves and also play incredible defense like the Magic guards do. So it's just tough, man. You need guard play in the NBA, especially now. And I just don't know how the Raptors can kind of cover that ground without playing a guy, without using a guy like Dennis this much.
Yeah. And just to like Simon.
All right, it's the Baker and Samson show. Baker and S, hello, how you doing? I've commandeered the podcast.
Yeah, you just froze. I thought it was me for a second.
This is that Rexdale Wi-Fi right now, bro. You know. Okay. I mean, look, honestly, I guess the thing that Samson was gonna say is I don't know what Samson was gonna say, but ultimately, I guess, you know, what was your thoughts on what Samson was trying to say?
I think splitting. I think having as even keeled a usage rate for both Pascal and Scottie is like very. Is very I would like that a lot. You know, as much possessions you can get into your best player's hands, the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're so right about the guard play. Having guards who can, just be, key cogs in an offense,
Yeah.
who can lessen the pressure on your two star
You
wings.
look at the
Like,
Celtics, right? Derek
yeah,
White and
Drew,
and
Drew,
right, like Drew,
Drew
like
Holiday, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Having guys to just take the pressure off, like, the playmaking and sometimes, like, the scoring, can be so beneficial. But, like, when you play with, like, I mean, Dennis hasn't been terrible. He's been somewhat serviceable at some point. I do think the usage has been too much for my liking, but I think, like, having like just other options at
Yeah.
guard, people that actually can just play off, like, your wings, and can space out for them, can defend, can do all the little things. Those kind of qualities are very valuable in guards. So they don't really. Dennis is not a type of person to do that. It's like he's more like the only thing he's more like useful with the ball in his hands.
Hmm.
Like, he's not a great off ball player.
Yeah, he's a,
Point of
he's a
it.
pick and roll guard, right? Like he's going to be the guy that's like initiating all of your actions, right?
Yeah.
Trying to run the entire offense, and like for the most part, Raptors fans have been not so happy with that being the case, especially in fourth quarter, right? Guys can't create advantages. It ends up getting in Dennis Schroeder's hands with like 10, 15 left on the clock. They run a pick and roll. He tries to get downhill. Nothing really happens, right?
Yeah.
I just, to me, it's like the Raptors have so many holes that they have to fill, and they're not a balanced enough roster to be able to fill them. They don't have enough versatility. It's all about like options you can go to, right? We talked
Yeah.
about the Celtics, and it's like the Celtics can go super big with Porzingis and Horford in their lineup, or they can go small and have one of those guys in their lineup. And ultimately, it leaves you with, and I know, guys, we're waiting for Samson just like you guys. I promise, we're waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
But it gives you an optionality that the Raptors just don't have.
Yeah.
And that optionality, you get deprived of that when, okay, you have Dennis Schroeder, but behind him you have Malachi Flynn, who is trying to figure things out, who's trying to develop himself. I thought he had a good game, and he's back. There you go. We
What
kept
a
it afloat for you,
blessing.
man.
What a blessing to have these wonderful co-hosts in here. I have no idea what I was saying. I was just like, my computer is broken. What topic are we on, fellas? What have I missed?
We're kind of just doubling down on the whole guard play is important thing,
Yeah.
and why it's tough to. Yeah, we were still on that thread.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
It has been
yeah.
tough. I feel like that's the perfect word for it. I did this video last year looking at all of the transactions that the Raptors have made over the past since the post championship. So looking at every trade, every signee, every draft pick, and basically the Raptors were able to glean surplus value from one, the Scottie Barnes pick. That's it. As far as over the course of their contracts, who has been a better player, Gary Trent Jr. or Norm? Phoenix Plays E actually just commented that right this moment.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. Norm has been the better player. As far as like the Jakob trade, you look at other players that have been traded for in the past. You look at that Nicholas Claxton, the cost for him at one point was a late first without even a second, not, what could be a fairly early first. You look at a lot of their free agency signings, they haven't panned out. And even Dennis, a guy who is definitely giving you impact, it's not at the surplus level. All these things, this is a team that used to get a lot of surplus value from a lot of places. It would work in the draft. It would work in free agency. Biannual exception, Bismack Biyombo, make it happen. You win playoff games because of that dude. All this kind of stuff. It's tough because you're not getting wins in the draft. You're not getting wins in trades, and you're not getting wins in free agency. This, and Phoenix Plays E brings up, it's a Kyle Lowry thing as well. Of course, Kyle Lowry helps elevate everything you do. Go ahead.
I just want to say that it snowballs, and that's the frustrating part about this. It's like draft decisions, free agency decisions, trade decisions. It's not just its own thing, right? These things snowball into the situation where the Toronto Raptors are at, where they are lacking in the leverage department when it comes to their expiring contract players who are up for trade, lacking in the leverage department when it comes to trade assets to be able to move these certain guys and maybe win now, whether it be first round picks or young prospects. It's just tough because these things snowball. And now you started this tenure of Pascal and Scottie and all that stuff from a position of leverage. And 2-3 years later, all of that is gone because
No leverage.
no leverage.
Yeah, a great comment from Abrelos Ojos says they dominated an outdated era of league as far as the front office goes. I've seen this kind of as like a thought that some people are kicking around. I think that it is probably true that there were more susceptible front offices to take advantage of, and Masai was like, "Oh baby, we can make a trade." Like, "Hey pal, like I'm there," and there aren't as many. Like a lot of the deficiencies in decision making have been kind of eked out. When we see a player like give you way more surplus value, it's usually out of the draft, or it's usually heavily play style contextual. Like you can contextualize it in play style or personality. Like you take a chance on a guy like Malik Monk. I'm not trying to he had stuff go on in Charlotte. He's a good guy, whatever, but he had stuff go on, and that made teams kind of like, the Raptors had a shot at him, right? He ends up going to the Lakers. It's just like you're not getting these big wins on the margin. You're not getting them on the big stuff either, except for Scottie, thank God, who's shooting like 40% from 3. Thank God. I remembered what I was going to say before my computer blew up. Having like everybody and their mom gets to poke and laugh at Scottie and Pascal for not being these efficient wings. Like they get to look at the true shooting and the effective field goal percentage. And guess what? These guys don't get to play off of guards. Like every great wing for the most part, except shout out to Jason Tatum. Baker, if you were about to say something, he's carrying a lot of weight. He's carrying a lot of weight. Good for him. But a lot of great wings get to play off of good guards. And that's when you see that efficiency rise. It's because the defense is being bent all the time. All this kind of stuff. It's just tough, man. These guys have to create from scratch so often. And that is why, and it's even why is OG like one of the highest volume corner 3-point shooters? A, because they put him there, but B, because the Raptors collapse the paint all the time. And guess where the pass goes? Even if it's Pirtle on the roll, he brings a tag because he's a good roller. Everything funnels there. And the Raptors just they can't create driving lanes for their wings. And they have 2 wings who just drive the hell out of the basketball. Yeah. And they don't get to lean into what should be this roster's greatest strength is eliminated by its greatest weakness. And that is almost Shakespearean. It hurts me. It hurts to watch that. That is just, I hate that so much. It bugs me.
It's tough because you look at the Jakob trade, you look at adding Schroeder, you look at some of the bench guys, the way, Malachi has panned out or has not panned out, Precious, his development. There were so many things that the Raptors were banking on here that it was sort of fool's gold to believe that this was going to be a successful season in the first place because
nobody here thought it was going
I
to
know.
be.
I'm just saying
the
in
numbers.
Yeah.
Scottie makes it successful because, as we've talked about before, Scottie defines the future. The same way, the chat is correctly identifying, Lowry made all of this surplus value possible. Why was Yuta Watanabe definitely an NBA player with the Raptors, but way more of an NBA player when he was playing next to Kevin Durant, both in Brooklyn and in Phoenix? Well, it's a much more simplified role. And he gets to lean into all his fun little defensive quirks where he's a positive on that end. And he gets to just be a shooter. And he doesn't have to create and do those progressive reads because a guy like KD just buckles the hell to the defense until, it's an open jumper.
Yeah.
Kyle simplified roles for guys. And the Raptors, because they have a wing-led offense, because they haven't been able to, you shout out to guard-led offenses, they haven't been able to lean into it fully because they haven't had the requisite amount of talent there to bend defenses from the guard position. They can't simplify roles because they have to approach offense from such a strange point of view. Last year, through a bunch of mismatches, isolations, all that kind of stuff. And this year, through a bunch of high post stuff that honestly half the time goes nowhere. And then it's like high pick and roll with Dennis Schroeder and Jakob Poeltl that goes nowhere. And it's like, how is a guy in a role supposed to slide and easy check in and out when he's like, you look at the way Grady came into this game, and Grady has not been good enough to start this year. Give him time. He's 19, whatever. But every time he got the ball, it's just like he's getting the ball. There's no way a shot is created for him at this point. Nothing. Not a sliver of space. He's just looking like, how do I move the ball on? That equals more passes. Sure, it does. But they're just moving the ball back above the break to start a new action. Nothing is dangerous on this team. And I know we're saying this after they scored 130 points. We're talking about the season as a whole.
Yeah.
But it's tough, man. Now everyone is saying bring Kyle home. That's not necessarily what I mean. I just hope that Scottie can define future success for the Raptors in a way that Kyle has in the past. It's a great hope of mine.
About this game, I thought the Scottie plus OG bench lineups were really good.
And Pascal plus OG bench lineups worked well as well.
Absolutely. I thought there were moments that Malachi was really, really good for this team. Super, super good stints from him. And like, you know, if we're going about development reps, and I saw a comment there earlier saying wins equals development or something. Ultimately, yeah, it's pretty successful when you have Scottie playing the way he's playing.
Guys seem to develop really well on teams that win. That's like a
yeah.
Sam Hauser, if he got drafted to the Raptors, he's out of the league, man. I tell you that much.
Luke Cornett would not have a role in this league if he played for the Raptors. Oh man. Yeah, no, I look, the bench was good, and I think the bench has been a prevailing good for the last couple of games for this team. Which, if you want to take it as a win developmentally, is a win. To your point about Scottie, I think him developing the way he has, I know some people are like, hey, maybe he should be getting more opportunity. Maybe he should be in a better environment. And yes, that's probably the case long term. But for this season, what he's been able to do, I think I tweeted out one time saying he turns water into wine. He really does sometimes. And that applies to Pascal as well. For a guy as young as Scottie to be working with the tools that he is with this roster and being as productive as he's been is a super big win, because whenever it gets to the point when like a team does make sense around this guy, that, and you know, you talk about roles, right? Utah and all that stuff. When those roles make a lot more sense, it'll look a lot better, both for Scottie and for those role players.
I also need Scottie to make himself a little bit more comfortable and uncomfortable on the drive more often. Because somebody brought up that usage is like a non-nuanced way to talk about touches and all that kind of stuff. Like I get that to some degree, but usage is basically saying like, what is a guy taking? It doesn't necessarily take into account like all their play types, how often they're used. And if you want articles on that kind of stuff, you won't find them anywhere besides RaptorsRepublic.com, for example. But I'll tell you this much. Scottie gets like 16 more touches a game than Pascal does. And we watch Pascal force things and see Pascal kind of get out of sorts going downhill. Scottie, get uncomfortable going downhill a little bit more often. Like those extra 16 touches, the fact that he spends like he uses more dribbles per touch. He's on the ball longer when he gets a touch on average than Pascal is. Even when you factor in that Pascal has those long post-ups that are like 6 dribbles and like 4 seconds. Scottie, some of that, take it. No, I don't think anybody on the roster is going to look at you sideways if you take that. Maybe that's I think that's what a lot of people alluded to with Fred's commentary and all that kind of stuff last season. I get it. But I think like Scottie should have carte blanche. Try it out, man.
Yeah.
Stretch yourself to see what happens. And I know like he's doing so by taking more jumpers, but I'd like to see, you know, what happens. And YG7 says he does get downhill and there's 4 players in the paint waiting for him. Pascal Siakam, same thing. Pascal figures out how to score on the drive with that paint collapsed. And I'd like to see Scottie try and make that happen more often, because this is the worst shooting team in the league. And you cannot rely on the kick-out pass. You shouldn't. And Scottie, I want him to try and be dangerous. And if anybody thinks I'm being too harsh, please, that is not a harsh critique. He's been
No.
fantastic, but I'd like to see him get a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more risk averse with the live dribble going downhill. Punch the gap, man.
Yeah.
Make somebody meet you in the middle. Let's see what's going on. I'd like to see more of it.
What's your favorite saying? If only Scottie knew how strong he was, right? Yeah.
No, that's not my favorite saying. That's not my favorite saying. That's not mine. That's a joke.
It's a Samson Folk patent. No, I'm just kidding.
I would like to see more aggression off the bounce. So yeah,
I agree.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think like experimentation is where this Raptors team should be at. And, going back to the whole starting lineup discussion and tweaking lineup changes and all that stuff, I think I guess from that perspective, it's sort of disappointing to see that the Raptors haven't experimented much with changing things up. For the most part, their rotation has been the same. And
Darko likes his rotation, man.
He likes it, even though it has not been very. Yeah.
I'd say he loves it. I'd go so far to say it.
Yeah. I mean, other than like the odd ninth man being different every now and then, it's either like sometimes it'll be J Mac over Chris Boucher. Today it was Grady Dick over Chris Boucher, and then Boucher came in later. Like, other than that, he doesn't really change his lineup that much. And I kind of need a little bit more experimentation from that, from how the Raptors are utilizing some of their guys. And just, yeah, like this season, I'm not going to say it's lost. It's 9-14, but you're in a position where like things aren't looking great. So you might as well try some stuff. And like, that's all I'm saying, I don't know.
You're being way too kind. You're being way too kind.
Well, be unkind then. Come on,
way too kind.
Earn the enemy wings. Brother.
I mean, I don't think like I think Trey and you said, and Samson said earlier, like on the space today, like Scottie being this good this season, the season's already a success, to be honest. Like there's not much disappointment or heartbreak that can like literally factor in, because you literally found out like, yeah, this guy can be our next guy moving forward. But as far as the team goes, like competitive wise, like this is who they are. Like I think this is who they're gonna be. Maybe they'll go on a run. Maybe they'll rip off some wins, but like this team is just like.
Are you saying they are who we thought they were?
Yeah, I mean, like they have, like, what is the difference between this year's team and last year's team? Like,
well, they're
like
worse.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit worse, but you're seeing a lot of the same inconsistencies. Good defense, good defense, bad offense, good defense. It's like the same. It's like you're getting the same inconsistencies that you're seeing from last season, and I know Darko. Like I'm not really gonna like give him much flack. It's his first season. Rookie coaches, they don't really have like.
He's got to figure it out too. Yeah.
They don't. Really
I'm not gonna put this on Darko. You inherit a team that has been for years inconsistent defensively and just downright terrible offensively, and is the worst shooting team in the league.
Worst shooting team in the league. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people tried to tell me, as I was saying preseason, that a coach just can't make guys who don't make a good offense into good offense. Everyone said, "Hey, you don't know what he's going to do." I said, "I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen." And guess what? You can't just make stuff happen because, like, I got a big brain on the sideline. Those guys out there are playing, and they have things they can and can't do. And on the other side are guys who are paid the same millions of dollars trying to stop them from doing that. It's not the coach, really.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Okay. The Raptors have 9 more games left in December. They have obviously not won a game in December yet. I will give you the teams they are playing, and you guys tell me how many wins they will be getting in December.
Do you have another 4-game winning streak prediction in you, S?
Maybe I do. There's a streak here I could see happening. Okay, 2 games against the Hawks this week. Then the Hornets, Nuggets, Sixers, Jazz, Wizards, Celtics, Pistons.
All right, can you name those teams again? Like, is it just one by
No, go one at a time. Go one at a time.
All right, I'll go one at a time.
Win or loss.
Okay,
we'll say win or loss.
Hawks times 2.
Split.
1-1.
Okay. Yep. Hornets.
Win.
Nuggets.
Loss.
At Philly.
Loss.
Versus Utah.
Win.
I can see them losing that game, honestly.
I could see them losing
I can see them losing any game, but I'm gonna say
Yeah.
Okay. At Washington.
Win.
win.
Yeah. At Boston.
Loss.
At Detroit.
Win.
Okay, so that's like 4.
That could be the record breaker. I'm just saying, like in a really pessimistic sense.
Yeah.
So I think I had 4 and 5.
Yeah, 4 and 5. I think both of you guys had about 4 and 5. Yeah.
4 and 5. Even just hearing that out loud, it sounds too optimistic.
So that it does sound too optimistic. You're right. But like, okay, even if they do finish the year 4 and 5, finish 2023 4 and 5, they will be 4 and what am I talking about? 4 and 9 in December. That's tough, man. That's really tough. They'd be 9 and 14. That's like 4 and 19 or 4 and 20. That's tough, brother. Yeah, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Pistons make me sad.
They do.
Just the very existence of them. It really, and also a slightly less sad, or maybe more sad. The Raptors make me sad sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like watching these games. I know it's my job, but I'm like, damn, this is not good basketball. Too
Wait,
often.
What'd you say? Who'd you now before? Like, who'd you say made you sad? Like earlier?
Oh, the Pistons, man.
Oh yeah. That's like losing 20 games in a row. I don't think like I hate losing just like once or twice. Like if I lost 20 games, like
if you want to lose 20 games, you come up to Toronto. You play with us, Baker.
Nah, well, whichever team I'm on, man, we're winning a bunch of games.
Okay, bet. We have this recorded. We'll keep this in mind.
Exactly.
We heard the same thing at Summer League, man, but we ran the courts there. So one last thing before we get out of here. Just want to give S the chance to wait. Everyone, hey, if you're in here, there's like 150 people watching. Like the video, it helps spread it to other people. It's free.
Oh, yeah.
It's right there. Just click it. It does me a huge favor, please and thanks. And before we get out of here, S, would you like to alert anybody to work you've done or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, recaps every morning after Raptors games. I don't know if you guys want to relive these type of games, but they will be available. Gonna jump in and do the recap right after this. I think, I did some stuff for Forbes, going to be writing for Forbes. I do have a piece potentially in the next couple of weeks coming out on Raptors Republic about not Raptors related. It's Canadian basketball adjacent. So check that out as well once it comes out. And yeah, appreciate you having me on as always. Thank you very much.
Baker, anything you want to promote? The word of Muhammad?
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, man.
Hell yeah.
But thanks for having me on. It's always nice to pop by and give some insight. And this is my first time. It's my first time chatting with us on a pod.
I know. I'm so very happy.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, we've never been succinct in this. I'm very happy. Someone, Abrelos Ojos said I look like an Italian mobster. Thank you so much. You've made my week and my day. Thank you. You understand? It's very important for me to do this. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's S. You should take this reel or just the fact that somebody said that and give it out to all the acting or the scouting agents. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Something like that. Wait. Okay. So Phoenix Plays E asked what we think about the. It's the end of the podcast. Everyone's around. We have the momentum. You're in here to listen to us talk. Ohtani gets paid $70 million a year. He is getting paid $2 million a year for 10 years. He's making.
How is that legal?
4 times less than Thaddeus Young. 4 times less, and he's deferred somehow $680 million. I just have to get thoughts.
How is that legal is my question. Like how is that allowed in baseball?
Jeff Passan tweeted out the exception, and in the CBA there is literally a paragraph that says there is no limit on this exception. And they
Wow.
obviously, I bet people thought it would be like, we sign X player for like $20 million for 1 year and he gets paid $1 million. Like maybe it's a veteran or something like that. I bet they had no thought in their mind that the $700 million whopper was going to be deferred, all of it.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's wild. And like, how do you compete with that? Like what?
Yeah.
How do the
How?
I know baseball is much more of a team sport, and it's not about just like signing the greatest baseball player of all time and being like, okay, well, they're gonna
Trout
win
and Ohtani played together and it didn't even work.
right.
To your point.
But like giving them this leverage of, oh, it only is a $2 million cap hit. Now they can go out and sign whoever else they want. And like
I think it still comes out to 46
oh,
million
okay.
or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay. But still, that's still
Like he gets paid 2 million, but because of the competitive baseball tax, they pay 46. I'm not sure exactly how it works out, but
That's
it's
weird.
still either way, at the very least, you're saving $24 million a year or something.
That's nuts.
Or 68, which
Yeah.
and also from the point of view of like Gavin Newsom, are you throwing a fit? Because what if Ohtani, once these payments start deferring, moves away from California, and you're like, we don't get to tax $68 million or $70 million a year to give back to our constituents? I'd be irate.
Yeah, that is crazy. So is it a lump sum payment? Like, is he going to get paid $680 million?
No, he
just
gets
like
paid every year for 10 years. You're Italian mobster. You would want the lump sum.
lump sum? Yeah, yeah.
$150 million.
You want that five?
Bad Italian.
That's want that 5%, bro.
Yeah. I don't know.
5%.
And it also isn't accruing interest.
Yeah, that's
It's
also
crazy.
wild. That's also wild. Baseball is so weird when it comes to this money stuff, man. It's just like it's monopoly. It doesn't exist. You know, it's just a figment of our imagination. It's the Wolf of Wall Street thing. It's Fugazi, you know? Fugazi. I don't know.
Woozy. Yeah.
Woozy. Yeah.
So, but also Phoenix Plays, he asked the follow-up, like, wouldn't that, here's what he says, wouldn't that make the Dodgers poverty for the coming decade post-Ohtani? It might, but I suspect that what's going to happen is Ohtani's going to play for the Dodgers for like 7 years. And that organization is going to be worth billions of dollars, and they're going to sell it. And then some guy's going to be like, I bought the Dodgers with Ohtani. And then a guy who looks like S comes up to the door and says, hey,
was my 600 and I can't do numbers in the Italian mobster accent very well for some reason. Numbers are hard to do in that accent.
If I
$100 million, you know, I can't do it.
If I knew baseball, if I knew this type of money was in baseball, I would have picked up a bat a long time ago.
Can I say something? And this is gonna come off as anti-Baker, but it's not. So my apologies. But I hated that. Everybody's like, "Oh, I got to get my kid into baseball." It's like your kid's not making the league, man.
Isn't baseball by numbers? Isn't baseball by numbers the easiest league to make?
I don't know if it's the easiest one to make.
No, just by like sheer roster size.
Oh, the NFL is 53.
Probably NFL.
Oh yeah.
And there's 30 teams. And at least like the NFL. Go ahead, Baker.
Yeah, NFL is like, so you got 53 man roster, then you have a practice squad.
Right.
So literally anybody who gets cut but they don't get picked up by waivers, I think they're automatically on the
So it's like 100 players on a team. Yeah,
so it's basically 100 players, and injuries happen, rosters are consistently shuffling. You're adding people.
Yeah, but the NFL has non-guaranteed money, which, by the way, I know baseball, like minor leagues, is like super predatory as well. Like it's not good.
Crazy, bro.
Unless you're like the cream of the crop at your position, like you're not getting guaranteed money, or at least unless like you're a quarterback, like you're not making guaranteed money.
The NFL and the MLB are both experts at not giving people money. Yeah. Like that they view that as the sport. What happens on the field is secondary. They're like, how do we not give these guys money? Like the MLB is so good at not giving guys money that they register, or they started building restaurants just outside of the premises that's considered the park, so that it doesn't fall under like the collective bargaining, the money made from those restaurants. They're like,
That's
no,
crazy.
the private restaurants that exist, like they're not in the arena and people spend money there, but this isn't part of the team or whatever. It's insane. They work very hard at this stuff.
Wow.
And the NFL is just like bodies,
Yeah.
nuts.
It's all,
Yeah.
I mean, all the owners are cheap. You know, they're all like old. They're all boomers. So like, you know, they're very cheap. You know, unless you're like, you know,
They look
like
like
the
me
top
in
of the top.
40 years, let's say.
Yeah, like they
I'm
all
just trying to think like what would be the best kid? What would be the best sport to put your kid in? You know,
The NBA.
soccer.
I think basketball, probably the slow basketball.
There's just no way my kid's making the NBA, man. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah, okay, wait. If your kid is tall,
Yeah.
if they meet the prerequisite height, then
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
But otherwise it's soccer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
either-
think soccer is the way to go to. Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
since Messi is the greatest of all time and he was literally on HGH from like age 8 because he had a growing deficiency.
Crazy. Him and Hezbollah would have been the same if he didn't track it down. That's such a wild story that I heard. Wow.
Yeah.
They both make money either way, I guess. The
Mhm.
destined for greatness. That feels like, like 6 minutes of baseball talk. For the pull-up tray listeners who listened at the end of last year, who've been waiting for baseball conversation from myself. I guess you got it. To everybody listening, it definitely dwindled after we started talking baseball. There's no question about it. To everybody listening, thanks for kicking around with us for the night. Thanks for listening to us talk a little bit about the Knicks game, but mostly about a team that is struggling at a bunch of different things. For myself, for Sven Diarberheni, from my dear friend Baker, shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys are the best, insightful, engaging, and thoughtful. So it makes all this stuff easier. For the people listening on their walks, their dog, whatever in the morning, or just listening late at night, thanks for tuning in. And whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.